Hi everyone. Today we're going to be going over how to put finger tapes on your string instrument. What I talk about in this video will apply to every string instrument, the violin, viola, cello, and bass, but I'm going to be modeling it with the violin. But if you pay attention, you can apply it to your instrument. There are a lot of reasons you might need to put finger tapes on your instrument. You could be a teacher who's learning how to put finger tapes on for the first time. Or if you're a student, you could be a beginner who's learning how to use their fingers, but you're not able to go in to meet with your teacher and have them put them on for you. Or if you've been playing for a while and you just got a new, larger instrument, you might need to put the finger tapes on yourself to just get used to the new distance between your fingers. The first thing you need to make sure you have is tape. You can go to a website like Shar Music and buy tapes for the instrument, and I'll put a link in the description below. Or you can cut tape yourself. I recommend using a harmless tape that won't hurt your instrument when you try to take it off later. So don't use anything like duct tape. The tape that I use is Pinstripe Tape, which I got at the auto shop, and I just cut it to the distance that I need. If you play the violin or the viola, you don't need a very long piece of tape, but if you play the cello or the bass, you're going to want a longer piece of tape just because the fingerboard is a little wider. If you're buying tape from somewhere like Shar Music, it will usually come pre-cut. But if for any reason you do need to cut it, I'm going to go over how to do that. So make sure you have your tape and a pair of scissors. You're going to want to make sure that your finger tape is long enough to go all the way across the fingerboard. I like to also make it long enough to go around the neck so that the tape can overlap and keep it from peeling off later. Because the violin's fingerboard and neck is a little shorter, I like to do somewhere between 2 and 3 inches. Somewhere like that. And then you just need to cut as many pieces as you need. For beginner students, I usually like to put 3 pieces of tape. On the violin and the viola, that's for your first, second, and third finger. On the cello, it's for your first, third, and fourth finger. And on the bass, it's for your first, second, and fourth finger. But if you're more advanced, cellos might want a second finger tape, violins and violas might want a fourth finger tape, basses might want third position tapes for C sharp and D on their G string. For the purposes of today's video, I'm just going to do the initial 3 pieces of tape, so I'm going to cut 2 more pieces of tape. I always recommend that if you're not sure how long to make your tape, make it a little longer, because the worst case is that it's too long and then you can cut some more later, rather than having to cut an entirely new piece of tape because it wasn't long enough in the first place. To prepare my tape and make sure that it's ready when I need it, I like to peel the back layer off. My Pinstripe tape comes in 2 little pieces of tape, so I like to use the thicker one so it's easier to see and feel. And then I'll set it up on the edge of my music stand or a table so that I can easily grab it when I need it. Right now, I'm just going to put it at the bottom of my music stand like that. I'm going to do this with all 3 of my pieces of tape so that I'm ready to move to my next step. Now that our tapes are ready, we need to make sure that our instrument's in tune. It's important to make sure that before you even start putting your tapes down, your instrument's in tune, because otherwise, your tapes are going to go into the wrong place, and then your fingers will not know the correct place to go. If you don't know how to tune your instrument, I'm going to put a link below in the description of how to tune your instrument using a tuner. In the video, I use a viola, but like I said, you can use this for the violin, viola, cello, or bass. Now that my instrument's in tune, I'm ready to figure out where to put the tapes. Since you were just tuning, make sure to keep your tuner app out because we're going to use that to help us. I use the Tuner Lite app because it's really clear and easy to tell if my string is in tune or not. When you use the Tuner Lite app, make sure to click on the little tuning fork on the left side of the page so that it picks up the sound that your instrument is making. If you're a parent that's tuning for your child, you don't need to worry about being able to play the violin. We don't even need the bow. All you're going to need to be able to tune the instrument is the instrument, a tuning app, your finger tapes, and a pencil. Now, the purpose of the finger tapes is to tell us where to put our fingers to make sure that the correct pitch note comes out for the next note up on the string. The first thing that I like to do is tune with the G string on the violin, which is the lowest string. So on the viola and cello, the lowest string is the C string, and on the bass, the lowest string is the E string. To figure out where our first finger tape is, we're going to put our first finger on that lowest string. On the violin and viola, it'll be about 1 inch from the nut of the violin, which is where the strings lay across. On the cello, it'll be around 2 inches, and on the bass, it'll be between 2.5 and 3 inches. Now, these are approximate measurements. Every instrument is different, and that's why we use the tuner to make sure that we're in the right place. You want to make sure that your finger is all the way down on the string, and you're going to pluck it and look at your tuner to see if the note above the string comes out. You're going to pluck the string and look at your tuner to see what note comes out. On the violin, since you're on the G string, an A should come up on the screen. On the viola and cello, a D should show up. and on the bass, an F sharp should show up. Sometimes you have to pluck a few times to make sure that the note registers, and that's okay. One thing I really like about the Tuner Lite app is it has a needle that goes back and forth. So I could play this note and an A still shows up, but the needle's all the way to the left, which tells me that it's an A, but it's still too low. So I want to move my finger around until the needle is exactly in the center. Once your needle is in the center, take a look at where your finger is. Don't move it. Grab your pencil. Now you're going to make a very small tick mark with your pencil to line up with your finger to show you where it was when it was in tune. It shows up very lightly, and it absolutely is okay to write with pencil on this part of your instrument. Don't write with it over here or on the back, but in this part it's okay because it comes off very easily, and you're going to cover it up with tape. Now I'm going to put my finger on the same place but on the highest string. On the violin, that's the E string. On the viola and cello, that's the A string. And on the bass, that's the G string. When I pluck this one, on the violin, the note F sharp should show up. On the viola and cello, the note B should show up. And on the bass, the note A should show up. Pluck that a few times to make sure it shows up and you get the needle in the center on the tuner. Sometimes when you pluck a note on a string instrument, the other strings start ringing too and a different note will show up. If that happens, you can just touch the other strings to mute them so only that one note shows up that you want. When you get that one in the center, keep your finger there. This one you're going to have to turn yourself around a little. Watch where your finger is and give it a little mark. You can also mark it in the middle of the fingerboard if you have a hard time turning around enough. Now you can see that I have a mark here on this side and a very little one on this side. Remember that tape that we prepared? Go ahead and grab that. If you play the violin or the viola, I recommend sitting down for this part just so you can keep it on your knee and really sturdy. If you play the bass or the cello, you can put the end pin in and either sit down and stand up in front of it, or you can lay it on the ground on its side and work from it there. What you're going to do with your tape is you're going to very carefully put it under the strings between the bridge and the fingerboard so you can hold it with both fingers on the ends. I like to bring it all the way up to the strings and then slide it down. This way it's not going to get stuck anywhere. Then I just give it a light stick just to make sure it stays here and I can get rid of my hands. And then I check where I put all of those pencil marks to make sure it still lines up. If it doesn't, sometimes the tape goes down diagonally so you can fix the angle. You can also look this way to make sure it does show up straight. You do want it to be straight. Once you've decided it's in the right spot, I just like to slowly push the sides down. So now it is completely stuck. And now my finger tape is wonderfully in tune. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other two tapes. Next, we're going to figure out where to put our second tape. You could use the same finger to find it, but if you do play your instrument, I recommend using the finger that you would use to play that tape so that you know it's in the right spot. Because of this, I'm going to use my second finger because I'm playing the violin. On the violin, viola, and bass, you're looking for your second finger, and on the cello, you're looking for your third finger. Since we're on the G string, which is the lowest string, the violin is looking for the note B, the viola and cello are on the C string and looking for the note E, and the bass is on the E string and looking for the note G. On the violin, the viola, and the cello, the distance between the first tape and this new tape is going to be the same distance as the nut to the first tape. But on the bass, this is going to be half the distance. Go ahead and pluck to make sure that your note comes up and the needle is in the center. Another thing to look out for is that you don't have a flat sign, which looks like a lowercase b, or a sharp sign that looks like a pound sign or a hashtag, because that's not the same note as the one that you're looking for. Because that's different than just a letter alone. Once you've found your note, go ahead and mark it with your pencil. And now we're going to do the same thing on the highest string. On the violin, we're on the E string, so we're looking for the note G sharp. On the viola and cello, you're on the A string, so you're looking for the note C sharp. And on the cello, you're on the G string, and you're looking for the note B flat. I know that on my tuner, when I try to find a G sharp, sometimes it shows up as an A flat. That is the same note, so it is okay if that's what shows up instead. Once you find that, you can mark it on the side or in the center. My camera just stopped filming, but here's a recap of what we missed. You're going to put your second tape on the same way you just put your first on. So you want to slide it in under the strings, bring it all the way down, check to make sure it lines up with everything and make sure it goes straight across, and then you can flatten it around the sides. Now we're going to be putting the third tape on. On the violin, viola, and cello, the distance between your second and your third tape is going to be a little less than half the distance that you had between your first and second tape. But on the bass, the distance between your second and third tape is going to be about the same as the distance between your first and second tape. On the violin, since we're on the G string, our third finger is going to be a C. On the viola and cello, we're on the C string, so your third tape is going to be an F. And on the bass, we're on the E string, so our third tape is going to be a G sharp, or it might come up as an A flat. Give it a few plucks with your tuner, make sure that that's the note that comes up, and get the needle to the center. Once it's there, freeze, take a look at where your third finger is, and mark it with your pencil. After we have that note, we're going to go back to our highest string. On the violin, we're on the E string, so our third tape is going to be an A. On the viola and cello, we're on the A string, so our third tape is going to be a D. And on the bass, we're on the G string, so our third tape is going to be a B. Give it some plucks. And once it's there, go ahead and mark it. Go ahead and take your tape, bring it under the strings, slide it all the way down to where your pencil marks are. Check to make sure that everything lines up, and check to make sure it's straight. If it's ever diagonal, you can just lift it up and turn it. Once you like where it is, go ahead and flatten the sides so it goes all the way around the neck. On mine, some of them did overlap, and some of them didn't touch. That's okay. Now we have 3 of our finger tapes down on our instrument. If you're a beginner, this is all you need. If you're a violinist or violist that needs a 4th finger tape, a cellist that needs a 2nd finger tape, or a bassist that needs 3rd position tapes, if you could figure out what notes you need to mark those tapes, you can use the same method we just practiced to mark and figure out where those go. I hope this helps. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about how to do this or if there was anything that I left out.